Welcome to the Hyper Guy Motivational Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. I have another amazing guest. I've been so lucky because I meet all these incredible, inspirational people all the time. I have Hannah Abraham on, and I have a co-host today. I'm very, very lucky. Another Trojan, Cooper Brown. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
And so let me just go ahead and give a little bit of a background on Hannah. And Hannah, you know what? We're gonna go into your background even more. You've done much more than what I'm gonna bring up now, and we're gonna hit this as we go through the interview. Hannah is an independent artist and singer. She's a vocal coach extraordinaire, a songwriter, and music industry professional. She's got some voiceovers for music for some really animated some new animated series on Paramount. She has a Bachelor of Music in Popular Music, class of 22, Fight On, USC. She is a leader of a group that I wish I could have saw her music recently. She invited me. I wish I just wasn't around to attend.
Okay, we'll
Um,
be.
and she's on YouTube. She has a really strong social media following, and she's got over 634,000 downloads for her music. And she's also, and this is what I really like too, and we'll talk about this a little bit. She's part of an organization called Music Forward Foundation, and I would love for her to talk about that later as well.
Yeah.
She's been a backup singer for a lot of amazing people. Um, and I'm going to have her go into that later on because there were people on there. I was like, go girl, you are just under a lot of people that I can't even go there. Like a lot of, and she doesn't really give herself credit for that, which is
Oh,
very interesting to me.
imposter syndrome is real.
So here I go. So Hannah, can you tell me a little bit about where were you born and raised?
Yeah, I was born in West Covina, California. Um, Grew up in the Inland Empire, moved around a little bit, went from West Covina to Pomona, and eventually ended up in Upland with my family, where I attended middle school and high school. So SoCal native, born and raised.
So what was your inspiration growing up? I mean, you're like really deep into the music industry. When did you start knowing that, hey, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I love this question because I feel like most artists have a specific moment in time where they knew like music was it, but I feel like I didn't really have that. I feel like I popped out of the womb singing, I came out like when, you know. But I've been doing music my whole life. Like I've always loved singing. Um I think one memory that stands out is when I was young, I went to a private Christian school, elementary school, and we used to do chapel every week, where we would all come together and sing religious music, Christian music, but we would all sing it like in unison, like really basic stuff. And I remember being like 5 years old, being like, this is boring. And I would start singing like harmonies to whatever we were doing, and everyone would look at me like I was crazy. And I'd be like, no, guys, I promise this sounds way better. Like, so I've always really been in love with music, and I used to bang on pots and pans when I was little, pretending to play the drums. And was kind of an outlier in my family in that way. My family really appreciated music, but no one ever pursued it professionally. It was more so they were just like patrons of the arts, you could say. Except for my grandpa on my mom's side, he used to play percussion in a band back in Puerto Rico. So he was a big inspiration for me, although I didn't get to see him very often because he lived in Puerto Rico while I was growing up and would just come and visit sometimes for Christmas and would play the guitar and the congas for us. Um, but yeah, I'm half Egyptian, half Puerto Rican, so my mom would always play salsa music around the house. And my dad would love to listen to a bunch of like 80s Arabic pop, which is, I feel like, super unconventional because most people are like, I listen to the Beatles or like Nirvana. And I'm over here like, what is that? Like Motown who? Um,
And
but
what
yeah.
what was I guess So the first time you actually started to sing, how old were you? And was it a scare? Was it scary? Like, how did you overcome like the fear of like putting yourself out there?
Mm. I really don't remember how old I was when I started singing because I've just been singing for as long as I can remember. Like I remember as a kid, every Thanksgiving, I would put on a show for my family. I don't know why it was Thanksgiving, but like I just decided that that was a thing I was gonna do and would host my own little shows, forced everyone to come sit in the backyard and watch me like perform. Um, but I guess it kind of started in that way. And as I got older, like I don't know, as a kid, I was very fearless. Like, would do all the talent shows, would go sing karaoke, all the things. But then as I got older, like I don't know, I dealt definitely with a lot of insecurity and imposter syndrome, which is still a thing that I deal with. Um, and my family wasn't super well off, so we couldn't really afford voice lessons until I was like a tween until I was like 12, I think is when I started taking voice lessons, which is still pretty young, but like not as young as some other, people and famous musicians nowadays. So I would like record little videos of myself to post on YouTube, singing covers, but um, was kind of reserved and like not super confident in my voice until I went to USC for music and was really able to find what made me special and unique and what made my voice something that's worthy to be heard.
So I think Cooper has a question specifically
Yeah.
around why USC.
Yeah. So I'd love to jump in. So, of course, as a current college student, I'm still like, I have no idea what I want to do. It's been like almost 3 years. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's going on. So I'd love to hear for you personally. You mentioned that you weren't that confident in singing until you came to USC. So how did your experience at USC shape how you perceived your future career, what you wanted to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good question. I feel like it wasn't until like late high school that I kind of perceived a sort of trajectory of a career in music because I remember telling myself, like, if I didn't become discovered and signed by a label by the time I was a senior in high school, like, I was gonna give up on music because it would be too late for me and, like, it wasn't even worth trying. But that was back when I thought you had to be Beyoncé in order to, like, make it in the
Mm,
music industry, which is obviously not the case because there's plenty of independent artists who are, surviving and making a living off of their music and able to reach audiences and inspire others. But I, you know, I attended this summer camp called Acapella Academy when I was 16. And I went for 3 years every summer. Um, and it was there that I actually met people who like worked in the music industry, who were session singers and arrangers and vocal coaches and music directors. And most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them had gone to USC for music. And so from there, I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna be a singer, but I know that I should go to USC because that's where all the greatest people have went. Like it has one of the best music programs in the country. So I'm gonna do whatever I can to get there and then I'll figure it out. And at that point, like I'd written maybe like 2 songs in my life. Like I still wasn't fully an artist. I just knew that I really loved to sing. Um, and I actually auditioned for the pop program at USC twice and got rejected both times. Instead, I was accepted as a music industry student. So I did my freshman and half of my sophomore year as a music industry major, but along the way, I was taking classes in the pop curriculum because I was like, well, if I'm not going to be a major, like I still want to be able to take advantage of these resources and these professors and these opportunities. So I'm just going to enroll in the classes and not get credit for it, and that's fine. Um, and I eventually ended up getting really close to Patrice Rushen, who's the chair or who was the chair of the pop program at the time. And she was really like a mom to me and guiding me, and at some point was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be in pop. And she was like, okay, say less, you're in pop now. And so I transferred into the pop program, and was really just inspired by all the talented people around me. Like, it was always my peers that kind of inspired me, and acted as like a guide of how I should go about pursuing music. Because these were kids who had been writing since they were like 7, had like already 100 books or 100 songs in their catalog, and I'm like over here playing catch up. But it was like partly intimidating, but mostly inspiring and motivating to be like, okay, I see like what other people are doing. I see what I need to do to get to the same level. And I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that I get there, because this is what I love to do and nothing's going to hold me back. So I still kind of don't really know what I'm doing, other than like, I just need to perform and write and put my voice out there. And a lot of the opportunities I've gotten have been just from like meeting people and putting myself out there versus like auditioning for things and seeking things out. So I'm still kind of taking it day by day. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. I'm just hoping that, the more I put myself out there, the more people will resonate with my story and my purpose, and things will take off, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of purpose, I was kind of sent us a short bio about yourself, and so kind of reading that, you mentioned like a lot about the quote unquote like inconvenient truths in particularly like the music industry. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what core values do you feel like you're trying to communicate through your music? How does that reflect your identity? And yeah, why does that make you want to make music? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that question. It's my favorite question to answer, because I feel like we're in in a non-physical pandemic of sorts, you could say, in that I feel like the current music industry is plagued with a bunch of people making music just to make it, which is like not necessarily a bad thing, but I just feel like there's not a lot of authenticity out there. It's a lot of like, drugs, money, boys. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, that's cool, I guess. But like, I've always been fascinated with the deeper things that impact like the universal human experience, but saying them in ways that like share a different perspective on it, and like allow you to be introspective on your own experiences, and also like develop empathy for what other people are going through that you might not personally be able to relate to. um, and that's what I call like the inconvenient truths, the things that like people don't want to talk about because it seems really scary or really challenging to bring into a conversation, but are really important and necessary to make change in society. Like, I consider myself not only an artist but also an activist. And when I was in high school, like I was on the debate team researching socio-political, economic topics that impact, everyday people and how we can make changes to benefit society. And so like that's always captivated the academic part of my brain. But like I love I also love psychology and like learning about how the brain works and how people interact with each other. And so combining those two passions with like music and using my voice as a vehicle to like bring up these topics in a way that doesn't feel so scary and so intimidating, and to be able to share stories in that way, I think is super powerful, and something that not enough people are doing. Like I write music that are about love and heartbreak, but are not just like boo hoo, I'm sad. It's more like, well, what happened in this scenario? How did we get here? What can we learn from it? And how can we overcome that? And then I also have songs that are like about racism and like sexual violence, and mental health is a really big topic that I like to write about too because I've been facing a lot of mental health struggles recently. And it's just something that like so many people experience but nobody likes to talk about, you know? And so um I don't know. I just feel like those are the stories that need to be shared, that need to be heard, that are going to make a real change in this world.
Hey, Hannah, I want to segue off that. I like what you just said. I want to ask you this question, and Cooper, you can go ahead and see if you agree with this question. I know you're shaking your head, so let's see if you go. Here I go. So I would like to know what surprised you. What surprised you the most about the music industry? And it can be disappointing or it can be a positive thing. And then what is something positive that's a lot better that you thought than it was going to be? And I have a, I sometimes you see the musicians and you say, God, life is so good for them. I mean, so I mean, what have your experiences been like?
That is really a really good question. I have to think about for a second. I think, hmm, I mean, this isn't something that's necessarily surprising because I feel like we hear it all the time. But one thing that surprised me going into the music industry is that, at least in terms of like being an artist, because like I feel like that's a different environment than doing session singing and whatnot. But it's sometimes it's not so much about your talent or your quality of skill. It's more so about like, well, for one, like your numbers, your stats, your social media following, whatever, which is like kind of annoying. But also, I think that reflects a bigger picture of like how you're able to connect with people, like how you reach a larger audience. And for some people, that can happen really inauthentically, just by like doing things that are trending and viral, and that works for them. But for others, it's like being that escape from the dark realities of the world and just being real and authentic and like being somebody that people feel like is a safe place to live in and to listen to, I guess, if that makes sense. Um, and so yeah, like building an audience takes really true authenticity, and it also takes like consistency and time. It's like some of the people that seem like they popped up overnight have actually been working for decades, you know, and they like finally blew up because they didn't give up. And this is also not necessarily surprising, but it also kind of is because nowadays it's like, oh my gosh, this is the next pop star. But it's like, no, they've been working really hard and they've been really consistent. It's like you have to post every day, you have to release music all the time. Like you have to be that voice, but then like you can't stop because, you know, there's people out there who are relying on you for that inspiration, for that motivation, for that safe place. Um, so that's one thing that I've learned, um, which could also kind of be positive. But I think a positive thing that I've learned recently is maybe that um, it's funny because I feel like my answers work for both sides, but
Hmm, hmm.
a positive thing that I've learned is that um, there's going to be people out there who don't see the vision, who don't even necessarily like you, but like there's so many people in this world, and you just have to find your people. And like,
I love what you just said about what you have to find your people. And I also, I'm sorry I cut in. on that because it's so
Don't be sorry.
inspirational what you just said, Hannah. And also, I like that if you just inspire one person, you've already made a huge difference. If you inspired someone that's young and they hear you, and like I said, I've been following you for quite a while. I don't think I've ever seen you not have a lot of energy and not have a lot and be very inspirational. And I know it's so competitive in the music industry because probably like less than 1% of the people ever make it. And the fact that you've done, I think your trajectory is amazing because you're well on your way because and I'm going to bring this up later on, but you've seen background vocals for Jennifer Hudson, Little Nas, Kelly Clarkson, Tiesto, Pentatonics, and on and on. And then you just got a singing role for the Cleo Denial, right, on Paramount's Monster High. How did that happen?
Oh my gosh. So randomly. I well, before I go into that, I just want to say that like yeah, I agree. Like some people feel like they're not successful if they don't have a million followers on Instagram, but like for me, like I still play pretty small venues sometimes and like even if just one person comes up to me and is like, "Wow, like you made my day. Like that song changed my life." Like that's a win for me, you know? And it's really inspirational to know that like not everybody's going to see the vision, but those that do are like those are your people and those people will always be understanding and will grow with you. But to come back to Cleo, Cleor, um that was super crazy. So one of my good friends named Tequila Alfonso, who also went to USC, fight on. And we also went to Acapella Academy together. So I met her when I was like 16 years old. And we've been friends since. She's a really big inspiration of mine. She's like killing it as a session singer right now. She's like huge in the industry. She works really closely with a vocal contractor named Jasper Randall. And he is the head of Encompass Music Partners, and so he contracts for a lot of really big projects, like Monster High. And she had brought Jasper in, well, virtually, because this was back in 2020, so pandemic era, Zoom University era. But she brought him in for a little master class with a bunch of Thornton singers on like how to get into session singing. And so I was able to meet him virtually there and share a little bit about myself and my background. And I want to say it was like maybe a year and a half after that master class that I randomly got an email from one of the people at Encompass Music Partners being like, "Hey, we have a client that's looking for an Egyptian pop vocalist. We would love to submit you. Like, do you have anything you can send in?" And like, they didn't tell me what it was for, but also like, I'm probably one of the only Egyptian pop singers that they were ever gonna come across. So it was like the stars aligned. Like, this was my moment. So I sent them a few clips, and they sent it to their client, who I still had no idea who they were. And they're like, "Cool, we like this girl. Let's have her cut this demo um, of the song." And it ended up being "Royally Rule This World," which is the first song that I did as Cleo Denial. Um, and so I recorded the demo, and that still wasn't even like the official thing. Like I think they were still considering a few other people, but they ended up choosing me, which is really cool and fun and like one of the biggest projects that I've ever gotten to be a part of, even to date. And that happened like right before I graduated USC. It was I think March of my senior year. And I was literally like recording in my tiny little dorm room with like my mic at like 3 in the morning, like cutting this demo. Roommates hating me because I was silly loud at 3 in the morning. But it worked, they liked it, and I continue to sing as Cleo Denial even today. I actually have to submit another package for them next month. I'm running a little bit late, but it's okay. So yeah, it's really awesome, because it's like it's such a cool way to be able to honor my ethnic background. And of course, like growing up, I loved Monster High, so it's just really full circle for me.
Take it, Coop.
All right, yeah. So yeah, that is a really cool story. And I was kind of curious as we were also listening to some of your other songs on SoundCloud. Like, so what parts of the recording process? I saw you play so many instruments, violin, ukulele. It's amazing. Like, what parts of the recording process are you all involved in? Are you like you're playing an instrument, you're singing, are you mixing as well? So like, yeah, what's your process
Yeah,
there?
good question. So yeah, I grew up taking a ton of music lessons because I wanted to do it all. And while that has been a really great foundation for my musical learning and like creating, um, it's mostly the instrument playing itself has mostly been an asset of like translating my ideas into a demo, and then like I just I have really high standards of what I want my music to sound like. So maybe this is the imposter syndrome again, but like a lot of the time, instead of actually playing it myself, on some of these songs, like, I'll go to my peers who I went to school with in the pop program and be like, "Okay, take what I've recorded and now make it better." And, like, that's a really fun process because, I just love collaborating with others. I feel like it's really fun to create a sound that incorporates your taste, but then also transforms it into something brand new and unique. Um, and bouncing ideas off of each other. And so, like, I feel like lately I've been focusing more on the singing and songwriting in terms of like my performance, and I've kind of taken a back seat in terms of playing like the instruments because I've loved to just really focus on the storytelling. But like because I've been trained on those instruments, I have so many ideas of what I want them to sound like in my music. And so I'm oftentimes writing like the entire arrangements of my songs and then like giving that to my musicians to then like take it to the next level and make it sound even better. But I'm also a control freak, so I like to be there for every part of the process, from writing the music and the lyrics to actually arranging it for a band setup to then being at the recording session, helping set up mics and sitting in the control room, making sure the levels are right, and then like sitting in the mixing room with my friends as we're producing it out and deciding like, no, that's way too much reverb, but hey, I want more chorus on that guitar, or like, every little detail I have a hand in because I feel like it's so essential to creating the vision. I'm not the type of artist that's like, okay, let me just pay somebody to do
Hands
this for
off.
me and then I'll like get it when it's done. I'm like, no, I want to be there for every single part, even if I'm not like the most pro producer and like know how to work every plugin. Like, I want to be there to have that creative input and see the vision all the way through.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like that's very in line with your kind of philosophy you're saying of like authenticity and trying to communicate your identity and your true self through your music rather than these kind of trend the superficial, kind of flashy, glamorous like music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was also
Absolutely.
curious. I was also curious, like, so being involved in like each stage of that process is so fascinating. How long does it usually take? I don't know, from inception for maybe just for one song for, and I know you're working on an album right now, if you'd like to talk about that as well. So,
Sure. Um, yeah, that's another good question. I think it varies. Um, it's it's definitely different for each song. Um, I am working on an EP, not quite an album yet, although an album is on its way. I just feel like, I don't know, marketing in the music industry is weird. I'm like, I feel like I got to start with the EP and then I can level up to the album. Even though like I have plenty of songs in my catalog, but my EP that I'm working on right now is called Fantasy, and every song on it I wrote like for a class at USC. Like I took a couple songwriting classes and production classes, and so each of those songs were actually an assignment for some sort of class, which is
Wow.
hilarious. And sometimes those songs I wrote super last minute for the assignment, like hours before the class, and I wrote them in like maybe 2 3 hours. And then other times I like collaborated with somebody else, and it maybe took us like a month or maybe longer from start of like creating the foundation of the song to like putting the final touches of like background vocals and arrangement, production, little ear candy things, you know. So it definitely varies. And like some songs have come from little notes I've had in my iPhone journal thing for like years and just didn't get the opportunity to incorporate into a song until I was put an assignment in front of my face being like, write a song about this. And I'm like, yes, I get to pull out that note from 2016. Here we go. So yeah, it's definitely different.
What so let me ask you this. What kind of pressure do you have when you're like singing background vocals for like a Jennifer Hudson and Kelly Clarkson? I mean, so what's going through your mind? Are you nervous? How did you even get chosen for something like that? Because you see so many famous artists, they start out singing background vocals, and I've actually seen some background vocalists that were actually better than the artists themselves. Uh, and so, how did you get into that? And like, did they pull you? I mean, how does that process work? Did they call you one day and say, "Hey, we want you," or how does that work?
Yeah, that's another great question. And it's funny that you say that sometimes the background singers are better than the artists because that's another surprising thing I learned about the music industry is that like yeah, everyone wants to be friends with the main artist, but like let's talk about the band because the band usually has musical chops like no one else, you know, like they're killing and they've been working their whole lives and studying and training to like get to that moment, you know. But yeah, in terms of my own opportunities, they've all kind of came in different ways. And you know, they say the industry is all about who you know and not what you know. And like I think that's definitely true to an extent because all of those opportunities have come from like random little connections that I've made along my way. So like singing for Jennifer Hudson was really awesome because that was part of the Lion King 30th anniversary concert that we got to do at the Hollywood Bowl, where she sang "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" and "Circle of Life," which was like, oh my god! If you haven't seen it, like watch it on YouTube because she eats it up, and it was so amazing to be a part of. But that I was actually contracted through Jasper. Shout out Encompass Music Partners. He called me for that gig, and that was yeah, life-changing experience and also terrifying because it was so much music that we had to sing and like a giant stack, like I wish I had it with me, like a giant stack of sheet music that we had to go through and learn. And like in those moments you want to be able to like look out into the sold out audience lighting up the auditorium, but in reality it's like I'm looking at my music like don't mess up, ah, you know what I mean, like and also like sight singing and sight reading and singing based off of sheet music. Like I've technically been doing that since I was really young because I've always been a choir kid, but it's not a skill that I was like super heavily trained on because I just like I didn't have a lot of money growing up. Like I took a little bit of piano until I couldn't afford it anymore and then I stopped and then I did choir, but like my choir teacher taught us by part tracks versus like reading sheet music. And so I was never super strong in that skill. And like my imposter syndrome kicks in hella whenever I get called for those gigs because I'm like, I have a degree in music. I can do this. But it's still so much fun and like a great way to learn and grow as a musician. And then there's gigs that I've done like singing background for Tiesto, which was very much like not sheet music. We were actually learning from part tracks, and like I'm like, that's my wheelhouse, baby. And so like in those moments, I get to like look out into the audience and really take it all in and be like, wow, like this is incredible. And that gig was really fun because it was through this choir that I sing in called Tonality. Shout out Tonality, Grammy Award winning. Um, yeah, they've given me a ton of opportunities recently, and they're blowing up. And I love singing in that choir because it's not only like we get to do so many different genres of music from classical to jazz to pop to a cappella, but we also are a social justice choir. So we get to sing about like a lot of the things that I write about, like climate change, mental health, um, prison reform, gun control, a lot of important topics that are like really near and dear to my heart. And like getting to build a community based off of that will then like uplift you to do things that you love. And like Hannah, I know you love to go to music festivals and raves. Like, you better do this gig with Tiesto. And I'm like, yes.
Hannah, where was that at with Tiesto? Where did you perform at? Was it
It was
LA,
at LA
Vegas?
State Historic Park.
Oh, so was it, how many people were out there?
That's a good question. It was sold out. So whatever the capacity is for that venue, I have no idea because it's like outdoors. It's pretty huge, but that was literally insane.
Well,
Like,
I think also singing at the Hollywood Bowl is like some people would wait their whole life to sing at the Hollywood
Mm.
Bowl. And for people out there that don't know, Hollywood Bowl has amazing acoustics.
yeah.
It's one of the most amazing iconic places you can ever listen to anyone sing. And so how was that for you being in that venue?
Yeah, I mean, it was totally different because again, like instead of like singing something that I'd memorized, it was like I'm literally looking at sheet music, like with really intricate vocal arrangements that it's like, okay, I have to nail my part and like I can't let Jennifer Hudson down. So it was like I kind of wish that I got to like be more present in that moment because I was more focused on like working and doing a good job. But that also like somehow wasn't my first time singing at the Hollywood Bowl. Like I've been really, really fortunate to do multiple gigs at the Hollywood Bowl now. And that was probably like the most intense and like the biggest one to date. But I also got to do the 4th of July Spectacular with Pentatonics through Acapella Academy. Because Ben Bram, who runs Acapella Academy, and Rob Dietz and Audie Kaplan, they all work really closely with Pentatonics. And so I was like 17 years old getting my first opportunity to sing at the bowl for that, which was so freaking cool. And then I got to do it again in 2022 with Pentatonics. And then I've also gotten to sing original music at the Hollywood Bowl, not on the main stage, but in the venue, in the vicinity. So I've had a really lot of different experiences with the Hollywood Bowl, and they've all been so different and like so special and unique, um, and like different ways of engaging with the audience.
Ha-
Yeah.
Hannah, I know you have your own group, and I don't want to put you on a spot here. If you want, you can only sing for a minute. I don't want to put you on a spot here. I love me and Cooper. I love the fantasy. If you don't mind, like if singing like a little bit of that for the audience would be awesome.
I
And
would
then
love
we
to.
Cooper's got other questions for you. I do too, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh my gosh, yes, I appreciate your time as well. I could be here all night. Let's go. But yeah, Fantasy, which is the title track of my upcoming EP, is such a special song to me. It's really like the This Is My Identity song because I mean, it quite literally talks about my identity and how, like, I mentioned before I'm half Egyptian, half Puerto Rican, and I call myself Egyptian Rican, or you can say Port Egyptian, whatever floats your boat. Um, but that song was written for my songwriting 3 class with Sean Holt, shout out. And I remember the topic was like, write about a social issue or something like that. And um, it's like as soon as we got that prompt, immediately I was like, I have to write about my identity because even though like my identity isn't like a larger social issue, the way that my identity gets treated in society, I feel like is. Um, just because, you know, being somebody who's mixed and um, as some people would describe exotic looking, I get fetishized a lot. And I used to think it was really flattering when I was young until I realized that like, oh, these people don't really care about who I am. They just think that like I'm cute and I'm different. Or like I one time like I was working at a studio and somebody asked me like, "What are you?" Which like I get that question all the time and I'm like, you mean a human? What do you mean?" Like but somebody asked me that and I was like, "Well, I'm Egyptian and Puerto Rican." And they're like, "Wow, you're so lucky." And I'm like, "What does that mean? Lucky?" Like I'm lucky to be a minority, to face like obstacles of racial microaggressions and having to work twice as hard because my family was like a bunch of immigrants and you know they had to build a life for themselves. Like that makes me lucky, or like what does that mean, you know? So fantasy is really like discussing how, yeah, like how I'm sick of the fetishization of women, especially like brown, black, Latina, Arab, like women, people of color, um, and like how it has a deeper history of like abuse in this country. Obviously, like our country's gone through a lot and we've come a long way. But there's still a lot more that needs to be done. You know, like even some of the lyrics talk about like the war on drugs and how like brown people had to face like literally being planted with like drugs that ended up killing them and then got them thrown in jail all because like they were being oppressed, you know. And now it's like it might seem like I'm beautiful and lucky, but like we go through a lot and we deserve to be recognized for more than just our beauty because we have so much to offer, like our intelligence and our strength and our resilience. Um, so that's like the backstory. And if you're down to hear, I'd love to sing it. Cool.
Yes,
You're gonna have
thank you
to.
so much. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Love
I
of
know that.
to.
course.
Yeah, I know the audio ain't gonna be perfect. It won't be perfect, but I really appreciate you giving the audience a chance to hear this. And of
Oh my
course, you can
gosh.
afterwards. You're gonna tell everybody how you can listen to this on Spotify.
Absolutely. Okay, you're gonna have to tell me how these levels are. I'm gonna attempt to play it on my speaker. Can you hear that? Yeah. Okay, cool. Hey, hey, what are you? Where'd you come from? No, I mean, really, really come from. Can I touch your hand? Is it real? For real? Well, if you gotta know, I'm from 20 minutes down the road. And last time I checked, I'm human. Mm. Gazing head to toe, tilt your head and squint your eyes. So your curious intention won't help you rectify. They say I'm exotic, but I'm not your chocolate caramel sweet. 'Cause I have more to offer than to be your little fantasy. Oh, oh, hey, yeah. Whoa, whoa, yeah. You say I'm lucky like like I got some privilege. But just because I got a booty don't mean you can grope it. I'm not here to serve you, no, I'm not your token. On the way to work, piercing whistles from the street. You assume it's charming flattery, but you can't colonize me. They say I'm exotic, but I'm not your chocolate caramel sweet, 'cause I have more to offer than to be your little fantasy. Oh, 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 yeah. No sabes la mitad de todo esto. Vernos como criados metiéndose la droga, chequeo policial, balazo en la calle, no eres inocente de esto. Parezco ser exótica, pero no soy tu dulce caramelo. Tengo más que brindar que ser tu pequeña fantasía. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah.
Woo! Yeah, that was
That was
amazing.
beautiful.
Thank you. I broke a
Amazing.
sweat.
Hannah, you can
My
sing.
gosh.
You can sing, sister. You know what? And I know, like I said, the audio because of podcast, but but obviously, I mean, what I really like about it is you're singing like straight, very like acapella almost, like right. So, I mean, the fact that you're doing it's amazing. What a pleasure to have you sing that
Oh,
song today. Coop,
thank you.
Coop's gonna pepper you with a few more questions here.
Absolutely. Bring them
Yeah,
on.
thank you so much. The live performance, that was beautiful. Yeah,
Oh
thank
my
you so
gosh,
much.
thank you.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess kind of segueing, I was super curious. I was kind of looking at your like LinkedIn a little bit. I saw that you're also working currently for like Cobalt Music.
Come on,
Um,
LinkedIn. Yes.
little LinkedIn stalking. But
Love
yeah, so I
it.
was curious, like mixing the passion for singing, songwriting, that musical creation process, and then maybe that little more music PR, music industry with your current job. How, do those kind of intersect? And how did you find that position at Cobalt? How do you see that intersecting with your passions for singing, songwriting? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, shout out Cobalt for keeping me employed, for helping me pay my rent. Cobalt Music, for those listening that don't know, is a music publishing company, which is an independent company, so not major like Warner or Universal or Sony. But they kind of operate at the same level in that their roster is like huge. Everyone from Jasmine Sullivan to Tiesto to John Denver to Stevie Nicks, like they have everything. Um, and it's like really awesome to be able to work in such like a professional and like relevant aspect of the music industry that's like really doing great, beautiful things, but also isn't like super corporate and like totally mind numbing and like eating my soul. Because everybody there is so incredibly wonderful and warm and beautiful. And I was really fortunate to get that opportunity through shout out Creative Futures Collective, which for any of our creative audience members who are listening, that are interested, you should totally apply. It's this beautiful nonprofit that focuses on providing mentorship and workshops to people who are interested in having a career in creative industries but don't necessarily have the resources to get a job in that field, because it is such like the music industry is so competitive all around, like from the performing and creative side to even the business side. Like it's really hard to get your foot in the door if you don't know the right people. And I did a couple internships while I was in college, but then I would apply for like really big jobs and then I wouldn't get them because like this pool of applicants is just so big, and like when you don't have a personal referral, like it's really hard. So I did Creative Futures Collective, which is, I want to say, like a 6-week program or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly, um, where they like provide you with virtual master classes. They pair you up with a mentor. You do little homework assignments every week. And then if you successfully get through the whole program, they will take your resume and put it into their files and then send you opportunities that they think you're a good fit for. So I completed my program with Creative Futures in 2022, right before I graduated. And then I think like the summer after I graduated, I was notified that Cobalt Music was looking for interns. And I learned that like Cobalt does an annual internship program where they partner with Creative Futures, which is like so awesome. Like, like organizations in the music industry trying to make a difference, both with their artists, but then also with their employment, I think is amazing. So I was really fortunate to get that internship in the sync department of Cobalt. I did that for 6 months, and then they didn't have a position open for me by the time my internship program was over, but a couple months later they did. So I applied, ended up getting hired full time in the sync department, and now I'm a licensing administration coordinator, which sounds kind of boring. And it's like definitely not creative in any way, but I kind of love it because I get to do my creative thing at night, and then like during the day I get to learn about the music business in like real world experiences. So I'm like looking at all the writers split breakdowns for all of my favorite songs, from like Doja Cat's last album to like freaking um I don't know, literally like The Weekend and Phineas and like Billie Eilish, like crazy people. Um, and getting a closer look of like how revenue and like streams of income actually trickle down to the artist, from a publishing point of view, because like music industry is complicated. Like there's so many different ways to make money and there's so much money to be had, but you can't make that money unless you have like the knowledge of how to collect it. So it's taught me a lot about like what your music should be worth, because we sync music in everything from like the FIFA video games to like Super Bowl ads to big TV shows like Ginny and Georgia. And I get to see those like real numbers of like how much money was spent on the music for this deal, how much is the artist taking home, how much commission is Cobalt taking from that. And then I get to draft up these licenses for those sync deals and issue the invoices for them. And it's like now I have so much knowledge of when I want to sync my music, which I've actually been fortunate to do a couple times now. Like I know how to negotiate for the proper terms. I know what amounts of money are like reasonable to ask for and what to expect. A bunch of legal terms like most favored nations and what all of that means in perpetuity. um, and it's really cool to be able to like have the knowledge on the business side so that like I don't get screwed over as an artist. And also like have a backdoor connection of like meeting really cool managers and artists that we get to work with and go to like really awesome mixer events. And also like the people at our company have just synced such amazing deals and have signed such amazing acts. Like, yeah, there's just so much to learn there.
Hannah,
I love.
I think no, it's okay, Cooper. We only have about. I don't want to take too much of your time. I think we have about 6 or 7 minutes left. I wanted to ask you really quickly about the Music Forward Foundation. See, Cooper, you know what? When we get on with when we get on some with our guests, we could be on like 2 hours straight if we wanted to be.
Let's do it.
You're gonna learn it. You're gonna learn that. So the Music Forward Foundation. Can you talk really quickly about that? How it influenced you, and then we get to have some roundtable fun questions with you, and then we
Ooh.
want you to plug your wonderful career.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Music Forward, another really incredible nonprofit organization similar to Creative Futures, but they're focused mostly on working with younger people who want to work specifically in the music industry. And so I first found out about them because they were offering a scholarship. And let me tell you, USC is not cheap. So I was applying for scholarships all throughout my time there. And so I found out about Music Forward because I was applying for a scholarship that they were offering. I didn't end up getting that scholarship, but from applying, I realized that they also offer a bunch of like workshops and master classes and mentorship opportunities. So I immediately started getting really involved with those. Um, I did like both their music business and artist development programs. And then I was doing like their open mics, and this was all virtual pandemic era. Um, and then they asked me to be a part of Apple's inaugural Today at Apple Creative Studios program, which I got to fully produce out Fantasy 4, fun fact. Um, and yeah, they've just been like such an incredible resource both for my learning but then also like providing opportunities, because I've gotten to know the people there so well. They, as an alumni now, they call me back for a bunch of projects to sing music videos for them, to perform at their conferences. I've gotten to headline the Wiltern because of them. Like, I got to sing at the Hollywood Bowl because of them. Like, they are just really, really awesome and such a great resource for anybody listening who wants to pursue music, who is a young person who wants to get their foot into the door.
Okay, so here's our rapid file. Cooper, you better think of one funny question. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. Uh, really quickly, give me two of your future goals.
Ooh, ooh. Oh my gosh. Okay. One, this sounds so silly, but I want to win a Grammy. I don't care if it's for my music or for like singing on a project. I want to win a Grammy. And then second goal is to go on a tour for my original music. Like, I want to travel the country. Yeah.
Your go-to music for like exercise.
Oh, I really love like house and dubstep and EDM. Like Subtronics is great. Ellis Dream, love. Something hype.
Yes, I'm a huge EDM fan. So it's
Okay,
so
love it.
I've taken a couple trips to Ibiza and so yeah, I would like to go to
So
Ultra Miami is one of my goals to go to at
me
some point.
too.
Okay, favorite movie genre.
I'm a sucker for a rom-com. Like, I have too much empathy, and so I can't do like horror or like too much drama, like that'll make me sad or scared. Like, I like to use movies to uplift me and escape. I love
Okay,
rom-com.
guilty pleasure food wise.
I love I love chicken nuggets. That's a really guilty like, I'm a child, but, like, when I'm really famous and I get to have my own concert writers, like, chicken nuggets backstage at every show.
Okay, if you could meet one person, and it could be any time in the history of the whole world, who would it be and what would you say?
Oh my gosh, I hate this question. It's hard. If I could meet one person, um, maybe it would be this is kind of a basic answer, but like SZA, she's a really huge inspiration of mine who got her start like a little bit later in the general timeline of music. And so like that's really
So
inspiring
what
to
would you
me.
say? What would you say? What
Oh,
would you say?
oh, ah, I would say, girl, how are you so strong? You've been through so much. Like, how do you do it?
Okay, Cooper, give her your funny
All right, I
question.
got
Go
a couple. Okay. I'll just say, what genre of music haven't you made yet that you'd most want to explore?
Oh, okay. This is a good one. I would love to explore like bluegrass, sort of folky music. I think it's like such an awesome genre to tell stories. Love it.
Love that. And then I can ask one or two more. Where do you most want to perform? Like what music venue? I know we talked about the Hollywood Bowl. Are there any other places that you'd love to sing?
Yeah, I would love to sing at the Fonda. That's probably my favorite venue in LA because it has like a little cute balcony, but it's also like intimate enough where you can like really connect with an audience, but then it's big enough to be like, I made it. I would love to play the Fonda.
Love that.
ahead. Do you have
Yeah.
any more, Cooper?
Yeah,
We
go
have
ahead.
any? Okay, so this.
I
Hey, well, I
I
want
could
to.
yeah.
Oh, you have another one?
I can
Go,
I
Cooper,
was just gonna
go.
say,
Give her one more.
where do
Go
you
ahead, give her
most want to
one.
travel? Where do you most want to travel in the world?
This is a good question too. Um, I have two places that I really want. Oh, okay. I have two places I really want to travel. One being Japan. Like, I also really love Japanese food, like sushi, ramen, like can get it. And then also like they have this like one of the biggest music industries in the world, and like they're so technologically advanced. Like I think that would be awesome. But then also Greece because I've never been to Europe. But then also they have like tropical beach life vibes, and I'm like, that's everything I need.
Well, I got to tell you, Hannah, I thank you so much for being here. Cooper, you're awesome. I grabbed Cooper and said, Cooper, come on, we got to help me out.
Yes,
And
Cooper.
he was so happy to help out. And Hannah, how can people get a hold? Give me the whole lineup: your Instagram, your YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud. Can you just get? And then also when you're playing your next gig, and how can they get a hold of you?
Woo! Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so once again, my name is Hannah Abraham. You can find me on all social media as Made the number four music, Made for Music. That's my Instagram, that's my YouTube, that's also my Twitter, but with an underscore at the end. My TikTok's just Hannah Abraham. But you can find like all of my everything at my link tree, which is in the link of my Instagram bio, but it's also linktr.ee, linktree / Hannah Abraham. And there you will find tickets to my next show at the Mint on November 10th. Tickets are only $10. And it's gonna be super fun. I'm bringing out the whole band. I'm gonna have my harpist there. It's gonna be amazing. You don't want to miss it.
Now, do you also have a website?
We're working on it.
Okay.
Right
So
now,
the
my
best.
link tree is my website.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So you're using your LinkedIn as your website, so people can
My link
grab you.
tree. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. You've been
Thank you
amazing.
for
And
having me
and,
and
and
letting
me,
me ramble on and on and
no,
on.
no, it was amazing. And don't be mad if me and Cooper bug you. You know, a year or so from now. Just do me a favor, okay? When you make it, when you blow up, because you're doing amazing things now. It's hard enough for me to get a hold of you right now. Uh, just,
Sorry, I
just,
know.
just don't forget me and Coop, okay? When you become really famous, and say, hey, I remember I did a podcast a couple years ago. And let me forget about those guys. But
Oh no, I could never forget. VIP passes everywhere.
well,
You got it.
I, I
Never a
so
bother.
no, I so appreciate you, and you're just a real light and just a real inspiration to everybody. You're so talented, and
Thank you so
most importantly, you're a really good person, and you can count me in on that. You can count me in on that November 10th. That's for sure.
much.
And
Yay!
yes,
You
yeah,
too,
Me
Cooper.
too,
You
me
better be
too.
there.
I'll
yeah,
be there.
yeah, and
Thank
I
you so
really,
much.
yeah, I really appreciate. Any final words, Cooper?
No, just thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I learned a lot more about the industry, about you as an artist. So it was a really good time and hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I had a blast. And again, thank you. Like I know it's been hard to coordinate because my life has literally been in shambles lately. But I appreciate your patience and like for having me on and for all your kind words and support. Like, it really means a lot. It's like it takes a lot of mental strength to be a musician, and a lot of times it's hard to find that strength, but like meeting people like y'all who believe in the vision, who see the vision, and who support, like, it really means a lot to me. I appreciate it so much.
And until next time, until we have another amazing guest, Hannah, thank you so much. You can listen to this on Podbean, on all the major platforms, and give it a thumbs up. Hannah, we love you. And
I
until
love
next
you
time,
guys.
keep learning, everybody. Thank you so much. Fight on,
Bye.
fight on.
Bye.
Thank you.